Good evening. This is Nathan Cross with American Daily News, and at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, the United States military went partially blind. Not because of a cyber attack from Russia, not because of Chinese hackers, not because of equipment failure or solar flares or any external threat. The lights went out because Elon Musk flipped a switch. And the switch he flipped controls 11,000 satellites that the Pentagon has been depending on for battlefield communications, drone operations, and real-time intelligence gathering across 4 continents. This is not a drill. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is an American billionaire holding the United States military hostage because he didn't get his way in a fight with the president over electric vehicle subsidies. And the truly terrifying part, the part that should make every American, regardless of politics, deeply uncomfortable, is that he can do this. He has the power. He has the infrastructure. And as of this morning, he has demonstrated the willingness to use it. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, why it happened, and why this moment represents a fundamental shift in how power works in America. Because we just crossed a line that we can't uncross. A private citizen just weaponized space infrastructure against his own country's military, and the implications of that are staggering. Let's start with the timeline because the speed of this matters. On February 20th, 4 days ago, the White House announced the elimination of the federal EV tax credit as part of Trump's broader rollback of green energy subsidies. Tesla's stock dropped 12% in a single day. Elon Musk lost $18 billion on paper. He went on X, his social media platform, and called it, quote, economic warfare against American innovation. He tagged the president. He tagged the Treasury Secretary. He made it personal. On February 21st, Musk posted a poll on X asking his followers whether the federal government should be allowed to pick winners and losers in the automotive industry. 73% voted no. He screenshot the results and posted, quote, the people have spoken. Time for consequences. Nobody knew what that meant. We do now. On February 22nd, SpaceX engineers began receiving unusual directives from Musk directly, not through the normal chain of command, not through official channels, direct messages from Musk himself instructing them to begin rerouting Starlink bandwidth away from specific military contracts. According to 3 sources inside SpaceX who spoke to us on condition of anonymity, engineers pushed back. They were told this was non-negotiable and that anyone refusing to comply would be terminated immediately. And then this morning, at 3:47 a.m., military installations in Poland, Japan, South Korea, and the Middle East simultaneously lost Starlink connectivity. Drones went offline. Secure communications cut out. Intelligence feeds went dark. The Pentagon Space Command scrambled to figure out what was happening. They assumed it was an attack. They were preparing counter-cyber measures. And then they got a message from Elon Musk, posted publicly on X. This is exactly the kind of power play you need to understand if you want to know how vulnerable our national security has become to private interests. If that matters to you, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Because what I'm about to show you is how one man just held the Pentagon hostage. Here's what Musk posted at 4:12 a.m. Quote, when government declares war on innovation, innovators must defend themselves. Starlink bandwidth has been reallocated to partners who value technological progress. The American military-industrial complex had 72 hours to reconsider. The clock started yesterday. He didn't tag the Pentagon. He didn't tag the president. He just posted it like he was announcing a software update. Let me show you the receipts. Receipt number 1, the communication blackout. We've confirmed through multiple sources that at least 17 military installations lost partial or complete Starlink access between 3:47 and 5:30 a.m. this morning. These aren't minor outposts. These are major operational hubs. Ramstein Air Base in Germany, Kadena Air Base in Japan, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Naval Base Guam. These facilities depend on Starlink for redundant communications when traditional military satellites are unavailable or compromised. And here's the nightmare scenario that has the Pentagon in full crisis mode. There are American special operations teams operating in denied areas, places where the U.S. military isn't officially present, who rely exclusively on Starlink for encrypted communications back to command. Some of those teams went dark this morning. They have no idea why. They don't know if they've been compromised. They don't know if they should abort missions. They don't know if extraction is coming. They're alone. Because Elon Musk is mad about tax credits. A senior defense official we spoke to, who is not authorized to speak publicly, told us, quote, this is the most serious breakdown in military communications infrastructure in peacetime since the advent of satellite technology. We are flying blind in multiple theaters, and the person responsible is an American citizen who holds top secret security clearances and billions in government contracts. Receipt number 2, the reallocation. This is where it gets even more disturbing. Musk didn't just turn off the satellites, he redirected them. According to tracking data from independent satellite monitors, Starlink bandwidth that was serving U.S. military installations has been reallocated to 3 new customers: India's Space Research Organization, the European Space Agency, and most shockingly, a consortium of private companies in the United Arab Emirates. Think about what that means. American military satellite bandwidth, paid for with American taxpayer dollars through government contracts, is now serving foreign governments and foreign corporations, because one man decided that the financial interests of his car company are more important than national security. Musk is essentially saying, if you won't subsidize my EVs, I'll sell your military communications to the highest bidder. Receipt number 3, the internal revolt. This is the one that tells you how unprecedented this situation is. According to documents leaked to us by SpaceX employees, over 40 engineers submitted formal ethics complaints through the company's internal reporting system in the last 48 hours. The complaints allege that Musk's directive violates SpaceX's contracts with the Department of Defense, violates federal law regarding the provision of services to the military, and potentially constitutes a national security threat. One engineer wrote, and I'm reading from the leaked complaint, quote, "I joined this company to push the boundaries of space exploration and to serve my country. I did not sign up to be part of the extortion scheme against the United States military. What we are being asked to do is not just unethical. It may be treasonous." That complaint was filed yesterday. This morning, that engineer and 6 others were fired. Not for performance, not for cause, for, quote, "deviation from company directives during a time-sensitive operational realignment." This channel exists to expose power plays like this so you understand who really controls critical infrastructure. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button so more people see what's happening. Because what I'm about to tell you reveals the scale of leverage Musk has over our entire military. Let's talk about why the Pentagon can't just flip a switch and replace Starlink. Because the dependence runs deeper than most people realize. Starlink is not a luxury for the military. It has become essential infrastructure. Traditional military satellite systems are expensive, limited in bandwidth, and increasingly vulnerable to anti-satellite weapons that China and Russia have been developing. Starlink was supposed to be the solution. Thousands of small satellites in low Earth orbit, redundant, resilient, nearly impossible to completely knock out. The Pentagon has spent the last 3 years integrating Starlink into everything. Combat drones rely on it for real-time video feeds. Forward operating bases use it for secure internet. Intelligence agencies use it to communicate with assets in the field. The Navy is testing it on ships to provide connectivity in areas where traditional systems don't work. Starlink has become the nervous system of modern American military operations, and Elon Musk owns the nervous system. Here's the part that should terrify you. There is no backup plan that can be implemented quickly. The Pentagon's own satellite constellation, the wideband global SATCOM system, doesn't have the capacity to replace what Starlink provides. Commercial alternatives like Viasat or Hughes don't have the coverage or the bandwidth. Building a government-owned equivalent would take 5 years and cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Musk knows this. That's why he's making this play now. He knows they can't replace him. He knows he's irreplaceable in the short term. And he's using that leverage like a weapon. So what's happening right now inside the Pentagon? According to our sources, the Secretary of Defense convened an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs at 6 a.m. The meeting is still ongoing. They are discussing 3 options. Option 1, immediate nationalization of Starlink under emergency powers. The government seizes control of the satellites, compensates SpaceX later, and restores military access. The problem with this option is legal and practical. Does the president have the authority to seize a private company's assets in peacetime? Would SpaceX engineers comply with government orders, or would they follow Musk? And most importantly, could the government actually operate the system without SpaceX's cooperation? Option 2, negotiate. Give Musk what he wants. Restore the EV tax credits. Provide additional subsidies. Publicly back down. This is the option that some officials are reportedly pushing because it ends the crisis immediately. But it sets a precedent that is absolutely chilling. It tells every billionaire with government contracts that they can hold the country hostage whenever policy goes against their interests. It turns governance into a protection racket. Option 3, crash program alternative. Immediately begin contracting with every available commercial satellite provider to create a patchwork replacement for Starlink. Accept degraded performance. Accept higher costs. Accept that it will take months to fully implement. But break the dependency on Musk permanently. This is the option favored by hawks in the Defense Department, who never trusted Musk's temperament in the first place. But it's also the option that leaves troops vulnerable in the interim. And here's the nightmare detail that's leaking out of that meeting. While the Joint Chiefs are debating these options, Musk is on X posting memes. He posted a gif of Dr. Evil from Austin Powers saying $1 million with the caption, "When you realize you have more power than people thought." He's treating this like a joke. He's treating the national security of the United States like a negotiating chip in his personal grievance with the president. And there's nothing anyone can do about it in the immediate term because he controls the satellites. Now let's talk about Congress because they're losing their minds. The House Armed Services Committee has called an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning. They're subpoenaing SpaceX executives. They're demanding answers about how a private contractor was able to unilaterally shut off service to the military. But here's the problem. Congressional hearings take time. Investigations take months. Legislation takes longer. And none of that helps the special operations teams that are dark right now. None of that helps the drone operators who can't see their feeds. None of that solves the immediate crisis. Several senators are already calling for criminal charges against Musk. Rand Paul called it, quote, the most egregious abuse of corporate power in American history. Elizabeth Warren, who rarely agrees with Paul on anything, said, quote, this is exactly why we cannot allow critical national security infrastructure to be owned by volatile billionaires who prioritize profit over country. For once, both sides agree. But agreeing that there's a problem doesn't solve the problem when the person causing the problem owns 11,000 satellites. And Wall Street is watching all of this very carefully. Because if the government nationalizes Starlink, what's to stop them from nationalizing other critical infrastructure owned by private companies? Tesla stock is down another 7% today on fears that the government might seize assets. SpaceX, which is private, is seeing valuation downgrades from analysts who think this fight could cost them all government contracts. Defense contractors are quietly celebrating, because if Musk burns his relationship with the Pentagon, that's billions in contracts that will need to go to someone else. But here's what the market is really pricing in. Uncertainty about whether the rule of law even applies to someone like Elon Musk. He's the richest man in the world. He controls satellites. He controls electric vehicles. He controls social media. He has a cult following of millions. Can the government actually compel him to do anything? Or have we entered an era where billionaires operate above the law because the systems they control are too important to disrupt? So why should you care if you're not in the military? Let me be direct. If Elon Musk can hold the Pentagon hostage, he can hold anyone hostage. Your internet, your transportation, your communication. SpaceX is launching satellites for commercial internet service to homes across America. What happens when Musk decides he doesn't like a regulation and starts cutting off service to entire regions? What happens when he decides to retaliate against a state government that passes a law he doesn't like? This is about the fundamental question of power in a democracy. Can private citizens own infrastructure so critical that they can dictate terms to elected governments? Because that's not capitalism, that's not free market, that's feudalism, that's a lord controlling the land and making the king pay tribute. And if we let this stand, if Musk gets away with this, every other billionaire will learn the lesson. Control something important enough and you can control the government. Let me walk you through the 3 scenarios for how this ends. Scenario 1, capitulation. Trump backs down. The White House announces a, quote, policy review of EV subsidies. Musk gets what he wants. Service is restored. And we all pretend this didn't just happen. This is the path of least resistance. It ends the immediate crisis. But it fundamentally changes the power dynamic between government and tech oligarchs forever. Scenario 2, escalation. The government invokes emergency powers. They seize Starlink. Musk fights back in court and in the court of public opinion. His millions of followers start a campaign against government overreach. The right rallies to defend private property rights. The left rallies to defend national security. The country fractures even further. And in the chaos, other adversaries take advantage. China makes moves in Taiwan. Russia probes NATO defenses. Because America is too busy fighting a civil war with a billionaire to focus on external threats. Scenario 3, the quiet deal. Behind closed doors, away from cameras, a compromise is reached. Musk gets some subsidies back. Not all. Just enough to claim victory. The government gets Starlink access restored. Both sides save face. The media moves on. But the fundamental problem remains unsolved. We still have critical infrastructure in private hands. We still have billionaires with the power to disrupt government. We still have a system that's one tantrum away from crisis. Here's what I think happens. I think we get scenario 3 in the short term because neither side can afford to blink completely. But I think scenario 2 is inevitable in the long term because this tension can't hold. You cannot have a functioning democracy when private individuals have veto power over national security decisions. Something has to give. Either the government reasserts control over critical infrastructure, or we admit that we're living in a corporate oligarchy where elected officials are middle managers reporting to billionaire shareholders. And the truly disturbing part is that Musk might be doing all of this as a test. He might be seeing how far he can push, how much he can get away with. Because if he can get away with this, what can he do? If cutting off the military doesn't trigger immediate consequences, what's the limit? Does he start making demands about SpaceX contracts, about NASA funding, about regulatory oversight of his other companies? Where does it stop? The Pentagon is learning a lesson tonight that they should have learned years ago. When you make yourself dependent on a private vendor for critical capabilities, you're not buying a service. You're buying a vulnerability. And if that vendor is unpredictable, vindictive, and powerful enough to ignore consequences, you've built a national security crisis into your supply chain. They did this to themselves by trusting that Musk would always act in America's interests. They gambled, and they lost. Here's what happens next. In the next 48 hours, watch for three things. First, watch whether service gets restored before the 72-hour deadline Musk mentioned. If it does, it means a deal was cut. If it doesn't, it means we're headed for scenario 2. Second, watch the stock market. If defense contractors start surging, it means Wall Street thinks Musk just lost all his government business and they're positioning for the fallout. Third, watch Musk's X account. If he goes quiet, it means his lawyers told him to shut up because this is about to get legal. If he keeps posting, it means he thinks he's untouchable. And for you, the question you need to ask yourself is simple. Are you comfortable living in a country where the richest man can turn off the military's communications because he's mad about taxes? Because if you're not comfortable with that, then you need to demand that your representatives do something about it. Not just fix this crisis. Fix the system that made this crisis possible. If you want to stay on top of how this develops, make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Musk is a patriot defending free enterprise or an oligarch drunk on power? Do you think the government should seize Starlink or negotiate? Let me know. And if this breakdown helped you understand the stakes beyond the headlines, hit that like button. I'm Nathan Cross. This is American Daily News, and that's the situation.